So we'll go next to Puneet. So Puneet is a brilliant scholar. He's a great researcher, and he's unearthed a lot of facts that we didn't know. And Puneet, I think you came up with a new, a new piece of evidence that hadn't been seen previously. Some hard evidence.
Which one?
Weren't there some air tickets that you unearthed?
Yeah.
Okay.
I found the, the air tickets that were used to plant the bomb. So, well, this is a, huge tragedy, and you can talk so much about it, and you can just pick so many facets of it, which would be shocking and, would engage you. But I think in all this tragedy, who did their job well? Because, it's blunders. Actually, FBI did an excellent job. So I think that is a very pertinent thing to point out. And second, this can be done anywhere, but I think it's pertinent that we discuss here, because Khalistanis are actually becoming a very, very grave threat to the United States as well. I'm wearing a tricolor turban of India, and I'm, because it's more for Khalistanis than anybody else, because I feel they besmirched our turban and our tradition. So it's a pointer to that. But I'm a proud American citizen. When the Khalistanis in 1985, when they were planning to bomb the plane, around the same time, the Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi, was visiting the United States. And there was a parallel cell in New York of, Gurpratap Singh Birk, who were trying to assassinate the Prime Minister. But the FBI was so much on its toes. They got on camera how they were trying to, bomb the parliament and poison the water and kill thousands and do And that guy was sent to 17 years of prison. That immediately set a deterrent that you cannot get away with this stuff. Whereas in Canada, it was a free reign. So, it's so fascinating. For example, just to take one example, I think his name is Andrew McCarthy. And he is the prosecutor who prosecuted the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And, when he looked at the Canadian case, he was like, I cannot believe that this is happening. So in this, the judge agrees, that, okay, the witness that you have brought to me is very credible. The evidence that she is presenting is very credible. She is giving a written testimony, and, it's very damning. But she's so terrified that she would not testify in front of the court. And he was like, that's why I throw it away. So in any sane judicial system, if you try to threaten the witnesses, as a defense, you should suffer. But in Canada, the prosecution suffers. So, they made a complete mockery of it. And, what's so shocking? So, for example, in 1985, this bombing happened, and the FBI is helping them. And these people were so belligerent and, so shameless and so unafraid that you would say, okay, if they bomb, they'll probably like to go silent. But what was found because of FBI wiretaps, months after, there was another plan. This was called, I think, the Montreal plan. So what they did was from Toronto to India, they bombed the plane. They were trying to do the same. From New York, they would put the bombs and they would do it. And there was, because of FBI, they got the wiretaps. So these people were discussing on camera, on wiretaps, that just months after, we have to do this. Now this case went to the court. The Canadian system was like, okay, you have to tell who was the informer because of this, that you got the wiretaps. Not that the wiretaps are wrong. And they were like, these people are, they will kill. These people are very dangerous. They have already committed mass murder. Then they were like, no, this is not accepted. In the end, what they were like a compromise, they brought the informer, but he was like, his face was covered. But again, that was thrown out. Then there was another Hamilton conspiracy. And it was the same thing, they found these people on wiretap, and it was the same people who bombed, these women and children. In this, they are discussing how, they would bomb the Indian parliament and how they would abduct and everything. It was caught on camera. But again, they had hidden the name of the informant from where they were getting this information. And the defense says, this is a violation, that we don't have this information. So this case was again thrown out. So this is, they made a complete mockery of the Canadian justice system. And this is why it happened. So actually, from the FBI's perspective, like if we want to deal with terrorism and how to deal, so I think this served as a very good example. And they did everything that was in their hands, to help, but it fell off. There is another, very interesting snippet of this. So they killed the main witness. And again, the main witness, he had given a sworn testimony. He had a, attempt on his life. He was crippled, and then and everything was right, but his evidence was not allowed to be, put in the court. Even though that evidence was being verified from 3 different sides, which had no interaction with the other. So one was another FBI informant who said, okay, the bomber had told me, and and he was like, if I go to Canada, I'll be killed. So I don't trust the Canadian law enforcement or the police. So they had to pay him money. You get your own security. But when he got his own security and came to Canada, they were like, we cannot accept your testimony because you have been paid. Now this is so outrageous because he had given the same testimony when he was in America, when he had no risk to his life. So he was giving the same testimony that he had given in America. But when he came to Canada, they're like, you have been paid, so you're a paid witness. So I would just really recommend some of the things that are so outrageous, like most of the people I see, like they have very puzzled looks on their face. This is nothing. I can go on and on and on. But there is a great book by Terry Mulesky, and in Indian we have an expression, Gagar mein sagar, which is basically you put like an ocean into an earthen pot. So he worked for 40 years for he was the face of the Canadian television. So in that you have very limited time, and you really have to be succinct. So in just like a small 200-page book that you can read in 3-4 hours, is really put the case well, and you get to know everything. So it's an outrage, and from these people who at least in America they kept their head down, now they have become so emboldened. So I actually put it on my Twitter as well. So the same guy, and there is no doubt that he did it. There have been 2-year-long, multi-year-long investigations by Canada. And based on very, very hard evidence, they found, for example, they built the bomb, they went to the forest and they did test explosion, they built the ticket, so everything. So the mastermind, his name is Talvinder Singh Parmar. So if you go to Stockton Gurdwara, I put it on my Twitter. So they're venerating him. They are actually equating him to the preceptors of the Sikh faith. So for them, they are like Jesus Christ. So they're like, okay, today we are celebrating the birthday of ex-Sikh Guru, and we are also celebrating the martyrdom day of, this Talvinder Parmar. So what kind of monsters would rise out of this? It's a very worrisome thing. And also, I have one more point that I would like to underline. This is a giant, immigration fraud. So you basically say Khalistan, and then you get an asylum claim here. And what this terrorist is, when they talk in English, they talk about democracy and human rights. So, they speak to their gullible Western audience. But when they speak in their native tongue, they have to have their core supporters. So there they really speak the truth. So I found a video and I subtitled it, and it became like a huge issue. So one of the big Khalistanis, and that time actually he was sitting in the Indian parliament. He said, yes, I give a letter for money. You take a letter from me that you're a Khalistani and you are being oppressed, and you'll get an asylum in the West. And they were said, okay, is there a price? He's like, yeah, there is a fixed price. And then it became such a big news. So some people would not believe. So, a UK publication, they wanted to corroborate it. So they had an undercover reporter, and who would go to this lawyers. He's like, okay, we have Sikh, he's not a Khalistani, but he wants an asylum. He's like, I don't care. You say you are a Khalistani, and we will make all these claims that you were sexually tortured, and now you are suicidal and all these things. So after that, when my report was corroborated in UK, then their prime minister passed a law that India is on the safe list, so you cannot claim political or religious asylum, you have been persecuted. But it is still going on in the US, and I think you should stamp out. Now I hear something is being done, but all these people who have basically gotten a letter from this fraud in India to get an asylum, I think all their claims should be relooked at. So Yeah, it's like, I think that was a summary of what I had to say. If you have questions or anything.